Hey, I got some sleep. So that was good. And I wanna read something. We've been talking about judgment and judge not and stuff like that. And I mentioned that, in the situation where the woman was brought before Christ and by the Pharisees, what they did was brought her to Jesus so that he can judge her by the laws of Moses, and that they would take stones and condemn her to death. Okay, that's judgment. Okay, and so the ideal is that they literally took took her and and took her, waited and found out information about her, and then used that information to condemn her, to create a stumbling block. People do that on their jobs every day. Okay, they ask you a bunch of questions, try to be your friend, find out who you are, and then as soon as they get enough information or find something that they can piece together to make you look bad in front of the boss, because they're trying to keep their job. And that's what the Pharisees were trying to do. They're trying to trip up Jesus so they can make him mess up, and so they can keep their jobs as Pharisees, so they can hoard money, right, from the poor. And so people will do that on your job. They'll get this information, try to pretend to be your friend, and then as soon as they got enough on you, they'll take that information and toss it out there or put on the boss. Well, he did this, or they'll do something like watch what time you leave every night. Say, oh well, they checked out early 5 minutes every day. Because then that person might need to catch a bus or something. They might not even mention the fact that you come in early. Okay, so they just taint the information so that they can create a stumbling block for you. Okay, now that's not the same as if you're just doing wrong. And this woman was doing wrong, but Jesus did not condemn her. He did say, "Sin no more." Obviously, she was already a sinner. So he said to her, "Sin no more." Now, I want to bring up another situation about that. We're talking about judgment is the situation where um, Daniel was just so good at what he was doing, and the Lord had a blessing on him and made him a counselor to the king. That so that when the king followed instructions from Daniel that was given to him by the Lord, that the king prospered. And this is the same situation with Joseph. And so they took, Joseph had a dream and all these other things. So his brothers took him and tossed him in a well, in the worst place you would want to be. Okay, and it was a dried up well. It wasn't a well with water. Okay, so so I mean, it was a dried up well. So anyway, my point is that these Pharisees, these other magi's that was in the time of Daniel, got information, and they actually created a law. Okay, this is the deep part, right? And this is how homosexuals don't see how they're being used. They're creating because God don't like, the devil don't like God, and so therefore he don't like his people. And so you can't say you love Jesus and hate Christians. You can't say you love God and hate your brother. That's another reason why I'm saying I don't hate no homosexuals. Period. But you can't do that. Matter of fact, God has said many a times, before you even try to do good to me, as like one of his children, before you try to do something good to your children, or for good, be good to your brothers, be good to people, be good to other people, be good, before you bring presents and make charity funds and stuff like that, treat your brother right. He says, I don't want your sacrifices. Leave it at the altar and go straighten out your business with your brother. Period. So, so anyway, these, in the situation with Daniel, is that these guys were jealous of Daniel because he was going up in this stuff. And so they made a law that said nobody could praise anybody but the king Darius. Okay? Nobody could praise. It was a law. They made it into law, and they tricked the king. They tricked the king. They tricked him into believing that this was a good law. And no sooner than the king had put a seal on the law, that they took it, and then they went out and hid outside of Daniel's house. Now Daniel knew that they had, Daniel was one of them, and so he was one of the advisors to the king. So he knew that they were doing it, and they knew that they did it. And Daniel was Daniel was so bold. He knew that if he prayed, that they would take him to jail. So Daniel, they snuck out looking to catch Daniel, but Daniel wasn't hiding. He prayed 3 times a day. He prayed with his windows open, and so they could see him. He was on his knees with his windows open. You walk by his house, you could see him. But they were in the bushes waiting, saying, oh, look, Daniel's praying, and we just got this law. So now they went and brought this law, brought Daniel to the king, who Daniel had done many wonderful things for and blessed his kingdom. Okay, and so the king had prospered many times because of Daniel. So the king Darius was very sorrowful that this situation had happened now. So the king was just like, wait a minute. I wrote this, y'all tricked me into writing this law, and now I gotta take the law said anybody who worship anybody for 3 days, other than the king, has to be thrown in a lion's thing. So this was only a law to come across the God of Israel and those who worshipped him. So this law directly was set up for one reason, and it used these other people's envy and jealousy. Now, considering homosexuals do not procreate, laws of marriage is between a man and a woman, whether they get married or not, whether they have children or not, they have a fertility rate. Homosexuals never create. It's non-existent. Even by their own law of evolution and by Darwin, if it's a homosexual gene, without technology or heterosexuals, they would die off. So even by their own laws of evolution and saying it's not a choice and by genes, that would be evolution's way of killing them off. That would just be saying, like, in evolution's way, by evolution, if it's a gene and you don't procreate with a male or a female, and you're so attracted to the opposite sex that you have no desire for the other sex, then you're walking dead man, just the end of your bloodline. And that's not what marriage is about. It's an institution for bloodline, procreation, and that's all and benefits and to help bring forth to society. So to ask to be homosexual and ask for their resources is just a barren tree that has to be constantly fed. So I'm not saying that to hurt anybody's feelings. I'm just saying the truth. You could check it out. We're subsidizing for things that does not, procreate for humanity, does not extend humanity. So anyway, these people are jealous of these marriage laws, okay? But yet, just as these people were, these other magi's were envious of Daniel. So they created this law to judge, not just judge and say, you are this. This was to condemn and put to death. Okay? This was serious business. Just like this woman, it was to stone her. Okay? Just like getting tossed in a well, it's for you to be dead. They went back to their father, put blood, sheep's blood on it, and said, Joseph is dead. Crushed his father. You know. So anyway, so so now the king is weeping because now he realized that he was absolutely tricked into throwing and had created a law, because once his, that's how strong the word is. He is king. You cannot reverse back on your own word. Your word means everything. That's why, once the word is set, just like the word of God, and if he says something is a sin, it's a sin. You can't reverse it. Once it's set. Okay, so the king could not retract his own words, and he had to throw his beloved Daniel into the lion's den. But thank God that God is a God, a righteous. He prepared a way out. He just closed the lion's mouth. And Darius was worried about it the whole day. The next day, he goes to see if Daniel had survived. And he hollers in a trembling voice, Daniel, is your God, I don't know the exact words, but is your God able to save you, to deliver you? And he says, yes, my king. He didn't even have hate for the king. He didn't, even though the king had done this to him, he didn't even have hate for the king. He said, yes, my king. Yes, my king. My God is unable. Long live the king, is what he said. Then the king, you can't have Jumbo Jeopardy. The king took those men, those corrupt, defiled, deceiveth ass men, and threw them in you ain't supposed to be cursing while you're preaching, right? But threw those men into the lion's den, and before they even hit the ground, the lion jumped up and just crushed their bones by biting them. They were so hungry. Before they didn't even hit the ground, they was devoured and ripped into pieces. So praise God. I just want to, that's what, we got to be mindful how we make laws and how people manipulate the government or laws to the benefit of their envy, their jealousy, just because they want something that somebody else, that somebody was blessed with, that God blessed and ordained marriage and blessed it with procreation. You got a problem with God that you can't procreate. You don't have no problem with no darn Christians. Tell the truth now. God bless you. Just curl your toes. God bless you.